Stranger Things Season 4 introduced the actual villain of the show, but you might not know we actually saw him a lot before this. That's why today, I'm going over every Vecna appearance so far, starting with one you won't expect: Hidden Hands. The earliest hint appears in the pilot episode when Will vanishes, and there's a sound of a grandfather clock in the Byers house. That wasn't just set decoration. Clocks become Vecna's calling card in Season 4. The sound his victims hear before he drags them into nightmares and snaps their bones. So either the Duffers got incredibly lucky with random props, or they knew exactly what they were doing from day one. The Demogorgon that snatches Will isn't hunting randomly. It's following orders from a hive mind, controlled by someone with a serious grudge against humanity. Someone who sees people as pests that need exterminating. Will gets taken to the Upside Down and implanted with something that lets this entity spy on Hawkins through the kid's eyes, setting up the possession arc that dominates Season 2. But why Will specifically? That question haunts the entire series, and Season 5 suggests the answer is way darker than we thought. Puppet Master. Season 2 establishes the Mind Flayer as this massive shadowy presence in the Upside Down, and everyone assumes it's the big bad, the ultimate threat orchestrating everything for 3 seasons. That's what we believe. Then Season 4 drops a bomb that recontextualizes everything. Vecna shaped the Mind Flayer from particles floating in Dimension X, molding it into a spider form because of his childhood obsession with Black Widows as perfect predators. The Mind Flayer isn't the master. It's basically Vecna's psychic puppet, an extension of his will that he uses to possess people and creatures across dimensions. Every time we saw the Shadow Monster, we were looking at Vecna's creation, his tool for invasion. So when the Demogorgon attacks Hawkins' lab, or hunts the kids through town in Season 1, that's Vecna testing his control, probing for weaknesses in our dimension. He's learning how his creatures function outside the Upside Down, gathering intelligence about Hawkins and the people who could threaten his plans. It's methodical, calculated, patient, and it raises a disturbing question. If Vecna was controlling everything from Season 1, how many deaths is he directly responsible for? Keep that number in your head, because it's about to get a lot higher. Billy Hargrove gets a line in Season 3 that hits completely different after you know the truth. He tells Eleven to stay very still, and it will all be over soon. That's exactly how Vecna talks to his curse victims in Season 4, using the same predatory patience before he breaks their bones and rips out their eyes. The phrasing is identical, which means Billy wasn't just possessed by the Mind Flayer. Vecna was speaking directly through him. The Mind Flayer possessing Billy isn't random selection. Vecna targets him specifically because Billy has trauma he can exploit. The kid's abusive childhood and barely contained rage make him the perfect puppet for building the spider monster and attacking them all. Vecna understands psychological weakness better than anyone because he weaponizes it. But Billy's possession reveals something crucial about how Vecna operates, something that becomes his signature move in Season 4. He doesn't just attack people, he studies their pain first, finds the exact trauma that will break them, then uses it like a scalpel. The question is, where did he learn to do that? The answer takes us back to 1979, to a massacre that would change everything. Will Byers. The real smoking gun is Will's possession in Season 2, and once you understand what's actually happening, it's genuinely horrifying. Will starts having episodes where he sees the Upside Down overlapping with reality, feeling a presence in the back of his mind. Doctors call it PTSD from his Season 1 abduction. It's not PTSD. It's Vecna maintaining a psychic link through the slug Will coughed up at the end of Season 1. The kid becomes a literal spy, feeding information about Hawkins' lab's defenses and the party's plans directly to Vecna's hive mind. Every conversation Will overhears, every strategy session, every weakness in their defenses, Vecna knows about it in real time. When the Mind Flayer fully possesses Will, making him collapse and thrash on the ground, that's Vecna asserting direct control, turning Will into a living surveillance camera. But here's what makes it worse. Joyce and Jonathan have to superheat Will's body to force the shadow out of him, cranking the temperature until the entity can't survive inside his flesh. The Mind Flayer screams and writhes, black tendrils pouring from Will's mouth as Vecna loses his connection. Vecna hates losing access to his spy network, and you can feel his rage in how violently the shadow fights to stay inside Will's body. Will's connection to the Upside Down never fully breaks though, which explains why he can sense the Mind Flayer's return in Season 3 by touching his neck. That tingling isn't random or symbolic. It's Vecna's presence bleeding through their psychic bond, a permanent scar from being possessed. And it raises a terrifying possibility. If the connection never breaks, can Vecna take control again whenever he wants? Season 5 trailers show a de-aged Will getting kidnapped into the Upside Down during those very first moments of Season 1, suggesting Vecna specifically targeted him from the beginning, for reasons we don't fully understand yet. But the footage implies something huge. What if Will wasn't randomly chosen? What if Vecna needed him for something specific? Something tied to how the Upside Down works, or how Vecna maintains his power? Keep that question in mind, because the answer might determine whether anyone survives Season 5. Laboratory Massacre. Season 4 finally shows us the man behind the monster, and his origin is somehow worse than anything we imagined. Henry Creel, designated test subject 001 at Hawkins' lab, is the first kid with psychic powers. Not just telekinesis or limited abilities like the other numbered children. Full reality warping, mind-crushing, life-ending power that makes everyone else look like amateurs. According to fan theories, his blood gets used in MK Ultra experiments that create 11 and all the other numbered children. Dr. Brenner essentially turns Henry into a psychic incubator, extracting his blood for 2 decades to create an army of child weapons. It's eugenics dressed up as science, using one broken kid to manufacture more broken kids. But Brenner makes a critical mistake. He assumes he can control Henry forever. The flashbacks are absolutely brutal. Henry was a sensitive kid in the 1950s who developed telekinesis and used it to murder his mother and sister, crushing their bones and exploding their eyes while his father listened helplessly to the screams. Victor Creel ends up in an asylum, blamed for murders he didn't commit, while Brenner captures Henry and studies him like a lab rat. For over 20 years, Brenner keeps Henry suppressed with a chip called Soteria implanted in his neck, forcing him to work as an orderly and watch new test subjects get tortured. But here's where Henry's psychology gets fascinating and terrifying. He doesn't just hate Brenner or the lab, he hates all of humanity, viewing normal people as a plague that needs exterminating. He tells Eleven that society is a cage, that ordinary people are weak and deserving of death, that he's going to cleanse the world by destroying everyone who doesn't have powers. It's mass murder, justified through social Darwinism, and he believes it completely. In September 1979, Henry manipulates Eleven into removing his Soteria chip. His powers explode back to full strength instantly, and what follows is one of the most disturbing sequences in the entire series. Henry massacres nearly every person in Hawkins' lab within minutes, walking through corridors and crushing bodies without even touching them. Skulls crack, spines snap, blood pools in the hallways as he methodically eliminates everyone except Brenner. He's not angry or emotional. He's calm, calculated, executing people like it's pest control. He tries to convince Eleven to join him in destroying the world's pests, offering her partnership in genocide. But Eleven refuses and uses every ounce of her power to banish him through a portal into Dimension X. It's the first time Eleven fully unleashes her abilities, and it's barely enough to stop him. Henry gets sucked into the Upside Down, screaming, and we think that's the end. But the Upside Down doesn't kill him. It transforms him into something worse. Over 7 years, lightning and the hostile environment of Dimension X fuse Henry's body with the vines and particles, turning him from human into monster. His flesh blackens and cracks. Vines grow through his organs. His face melts away until he's barely recognizable as human. He becomes Vecna, and instead of dying from the transformation, he adapts. He shapes the Mind Flayer particles into his spider proxy, establishes his hive mind network, and waits for an opportunity to invade Hawkins. But why wait 7 years? What was he doing all that time? Keep that question in mind, because the answer involves every single attack we've seen across 4 seasons. Chrissy Cunningham. Episode 1 of Season 4 introduces the Hellfire Club, Eddie Munson's D&D group playing a campaign against a lich named Vecna. It's pure dramatic irony, because while they're joking about a fictional monster, the real Vecna is about to make his debut in the most visceral way possible. Chrissy Cunningham is a cheerleader dealing with an eating disorder and an abusive mother, exactly the kind of trauma Vecna targets. She starts seeing her mom's face rotting, hears clock chimes echoing in empty hallways, gets nosebleeds that won't stop. Eddie tries to help her score drugs to cope with whatever's happening to her, but it's already too late. Vecna has marked her, studied her trauma, found the exact psychological wound he needs to exploit. She's not randomly selected. None of his victims are. He chooses people whose pain he can weaponize, whose guilt and trauma make them vulnerable to his mindscape invasions. Vecna pulls Chrissy into his lair, a crimson hellscape filled with the corpses of his previous victims, strung up in vines like trophies. She sees her trauma manifest as her mother screaming insults about her body, about how she's worthless and disgusting. Then Vecna himself appears, and the design is genuinely nightmare fuel. He's 7 feet tall with vines growing through his body, talon claws on his left hand, and no face except exposed muscles and mist-filled eyes. His voice sounds like gravel scraping metal, and when he speaks, you can feel the malice radiating off him. Vecna levitates Chrissy in Eddie's trailer while Eddie watches helplessly, unable to understand what he's seeing. Her body rises to the ceiling, arms and legs snapping at impossible angles as bones break through skin. Her jaw crushes, eyes explode in their sockets, and then Vecna drops her corpse to the floor, like discarded trash. It's the most visceral kill the show's ever done, and it opens a small gate to the Upside Down right there in the trailer. But here's the disturbing part. Vecna didn't kill her for food or power or any logical monster reason. He killed her because her death tears a hole in reality, which means he needs more deaths to complete whatever ritual he's planning. The question becomes, how many more people have to die before his plan succeeds? Fred Benson. Fred is a school newspaper reporter covering Chrissy's death, and he's been dealing with survivors' guilt after a car accident killed someone. Guilt is like catnip to Vecna because guilty people blame themselves, which makes them easier to trap in psychological loops. Fred starts hallucinating at the trailer park, seeing the accident victim as a rotting corpse, blaming him for her death. The clock chimes return, that signature sound that means Vecna's coming. Vecna drags Fred into the mindscape while he's standing by the road, and Nancy watches as Fred's body suddenly lifts into the air. She can't see the mindscape, can't see the horror Fred's experiencing as his trauma plays on loop. All she sees is his body contorting, bones snapping, eyes exploding before he drops dead. Another gate rips open at the kill site, this one bigger than Chrissy's. The pattern is becoming clear. 4 kills, 4 gates, and something catastrophic happens. But what exactly? Vecna hasn't revealed his endgame yet, and the escalation suggests it's worse than anyone imagines. The party realizes something crucial during their investigation. Music can break Vecna's curse. When someone's favorite song plays, it creates an emotional anchor strong enough to pull them out of the mindscape before Vecna can finish the kill. It's not magic or some supernatural trick. It's pure psychology, using positive memories to override trauma. Music connects to happiness, to moments when life felt good, and that emotional weight is powerful enough to yank someone back to reality. But there's a catch. The victim has to hear the music before Vecna completes his kill sequence, which means you need perfect timing and luck. This becomes absolutely crucial for what happens with Max, and it's the most intense sequence of the entire season. Patrick McKinney. Patrick is on the basketball team, dealing with an abusive father who beats him regularly. Vecna marks him because Patrick's fear and pain make him vulnerable, and Vecna understands domestic violence creates a specific kind of trauma he can exploit. Patrick's curse happens at Lover's Lake, while the group is investigating the Upside Down gate underwater, trying to understand how Vecna's ritual works. Patrick starts floating above the water, while his basketball teammates watch from boats, unable to do anything except scream his name. His limbs snap one by one, the sound carrying across the lake as his body breaks apart in midair. Eyes explode, jaw crushes, and he drops into the water as the 3rd gate tears open at the lake bottom. 3 down, 1 to go. The ritual is almost complete, and the group still doesn't fully understand what happens when Vecna gets his 4th kill, but they've figured out where Vecna's physical body is located. The Creel House, the old mansion where Henry murdered his family back in 1959. His body is suspended in vines in the attic, completely integrated into the Upside Down's biology, like a spider at the center of a web. While he's cursing victims, he's in a meditative trance, which means he's vulnerable to physical attacks. This gives them a desperate plan. Use Max as bait to lure Vecna into another curse attempt, then attack his physical body while he's distracted in the mindscape. It's incredibly dangerous because if they fail, Max dies and Vecna completes his ritual. But they're out of options, and Max volunteers because she knows she's next anyway. Max Mayfield. Max volunteers as bait, and the psychological weight of this decision is crushing. She's already marked because her stepbrother Billy died in Season 3, saving her and Eleven from the Mind Flayer, and she's drowning in guilt over his death. Vecna's been feeding her visions of Billy blaming her, telling her it should have been her who died. She's been pushing everyone away, isolating herself, spiraling into depression. It's exactly the emotional state Vecna needs to trap her. Max writes letters to everyone she cares about, essentially preparing to die. She knows there's a good chance this plan fails, and Vecna kills her, but she does it anyway because letting him complete his ritual means everyone dies. Lucas, Steve, Dustin, Nancy, they all watch her walk into the Creel house, knowing they might be sending her to her death. The tension is unbearable. Vecna takes the bait immediately. He pulls Max into his mindscape at the old cemetery where Billy's buried, forcing her to watch her trauma play on loop. Billy appears as a rotting corpse, screaming that it's her fault he's dead, that she never loved him, that she's worthless. Max tries to fight back, tries to remind herself it's not real, but Vecna's illusions are too powerful. He's had decades to perfect this torture method, and Max is just a traumatized teenager. But here's where Vecna makes his villain monologue mistake. While Max is trapped, he reveals his full plan to Nancy, who's also in a vision state. He shows her Hawkins being torn apart, gates spreading like cracks in glass, the Upside Down consuming everything until both dimensions merge. He's not just killing for revenge or fun. He's creating a ritual, 4 gates at 4 death sites, forming a massive rift that will permanently connect dimensions and let him reshape reality without humanity's sickness. His whole speech is classic serial killer logic about how society is a cage, and he's freeing everyone by destroying them. It's unhinged mass murder dressed up as philosophy, mindscape battle. While Max is trapped and dying, Eleven enters her mind using a sensory deprivation setup back in Nevada. She's been trying to get her powers back after losing them in Season 3, and this is her first real test since recovering. Eleven finds Vecna's lair in the Mindscape, sees the corpses of Chrissy and the others strung up like trophies in his Vine Cathedral. It's a monument to his kills, proof that he views murder as art. Eleven confronts Vecna directly, and they have a full psychic brawl that destroys chunks of the Mindscape. Vecna is stronger in his domain though, throwing Eleven around like a ragdoll, choking her with vines, crushing her against walls. He taunts her about how they're the same, both outcasts who were hurt by normal people, both powerful enough to reshape reality. He offers her partnership again, the same deal he tried in 1979. Join him in destroying humanity's plague. Become gods together. Eleven refuses his logic and fights back, but she's not strong enough to beat him alone. Vecna's had 7 years to master his powers in the Upside Down, while Eleven was living as a normal teenager. The power gap is massive, and she's losing badly. Blood pours from her nose. She's screaming with effort, and Vecna just laughs because he knows he's won, but he's made a critical tactical error. He's so focused on breaking Eleven that he's left his physical body vulnerable. Back in the physical world, Steve, Nancy, and Robin break into the Creel house Upside Down version, armed with Molotov cocktails and shotguns. They find Vecna's real body, suspended in the attic, vines pulsing as he focuses all his power on the Mindscape battle. Nancy throws the first Molotov, and fire engulfs his body. Steve follows with shotgun blasts, and Robin adds more fire. Vecna's physical form burns and breaks, and he feels every injury simultaneously in both worlds. The attack weakens his grip on Max, but it's not enough. She's still trapped, still dying, bones starting to crack. Then, Lucas manages to get Max's Walkman playing Running Up That Hill, her favorite song. The music creates a portal back to reality, a glowing doorway in the Mindscape that leads to the real cemetery. Max sees it and runs, her memories playing like a movie. Every happy moment with Lucas, with the party, even good memories of Billy before he became abusive. The emotional weight of those memories pulls her toward reality, while Vecna tries desperately to hold on. Eleven helps from inside the Mindscape, using the last of her strength to push Vecna back. Between the physical damage from the Molotovs, Eleven's psychic assault, and Max's escape through music, Vecna loses control. Max breaks free from the Mindscape seconds before he can finish killing her, gasping back to consciousness in Lucas's arms. But the damage is already done. 4 gates. Max escaped Vecna's curse, but Vecna got enough psychic energy from tormenting her to open the 4th gate anyway. The 4 kill sites activate simultaneously, glowing red fissures that tear through Hawkins like fault lines. The gates spread from Chrissy's death site at the trailer park, from Fred's death on the road, from Patrick's death at the lake, and from the Creel house, where Vecna nearly killed Max. They meet in the center of downtown, forming a massive X-shaped rift. The Upside Down starts bleeding into reality immediately. Vines grow through the streets, wrapping around buildings and cars. Particles fill the air like toxic snow, and ash falls constantly. The ground splits apart, buildings collapse, and dozens of people die in what Hawkins officials call an earthquake. But it's not an earthquake. It's a dimensional merger, reality itself tearing at the seams. Steve's group escapes the Creel house as Vecna's body regenerates from the fire damage. They see him silhouetted in the attic window, alive but wounded. Vines already healing the burns and shotgun wounds. He's not dead, just temporarily stopped. And they realize with horror that the ritual succeeded anyway. Vecna got what he wanted. The gates are open, the Upside Down is invading, and there's no way to close them without killing him. The final shots of Season 4 show spores drifting over Hawkins, the Upside Down slowly consuming everything. Plants die, the sky turns dark, and the town starts looking like the hellscape Will saw in Season 2. Will touches his neck and tells Mike that Vecna is still out there, hurt and angry, but alive. The hive mind connection never broke, which means Will can sense Vecna's emotions through their psychic link, and what he feels is pure rage, mixed with triumph because Vecna knows he won. The invasion has begun, and nothing can stop it now. Future Evolution. Season 5 trailers dropped in October 2025, and they show Vecna's new form in all its horrifying glory. He's rebuilt himself with thicker vines forming almost like armor, covering the burn scars from Nancy's Molotov cocktails. The design looks more powerful, more integrated with the Upside Down's biology, like he's becoming less human with each transformation. It raises a disturbing question. Is there a limit to how powerful Vecna can become? Or will he keep evolving until he's basically a god? The footage shows a de-aged Will being dragged into the Upside Down during those first minutes of Season 1, confirming Vecna targeted him, specifically from the very start. It's not random. It's not opportunistic. Vecna needed Will for something, and we still don't know what. There's a shot of Vecna walking through a destroyed Hawkins with demogorgons and other creatures swarming around him like loyal soldiers, fully in control of both dimensions now that the gates are permanently open. The Duffer Brothers confirmed in interviews that Vecna was always meant to be the endgame villain. They seeded clues throughout the entire series, from clock imagery to possession mechanics to the Mind Flayer's spider shape. Every monster, every invasion, every loss the characters suffered traces back to one traumatized kid who decided humanity didn't deserve to exist. Henry Creel broke in the 1950s, became 001 in the lab, transformed into Vecna in the Upside Down, and orchestrated 4 seasons of horror to get revenge on a world that called him broken. And Season 5 is where everyone finally fights back. Stage play. Outside the main show, the stage play, Stranger Things: The First Shadow, dives into teenage Henry's origins, and it contradicts some of what we learn in Season 4. The play is set in 1959 and shows Henry as a sensitive kid dealing with powers he doesn't fully understand. He's actually dating a girl named Patty Newby, acting somewhat normal despite the darkness growing inside him. It's a very different portrayal from the cold psychopath we see in Season 4. The play reveals he got his powers from exposure to Dimension X through stolen experiment equipment in Nevada caves, which completely contradicts Henry's Season 4 claim that he was just born special. This version suggests the Mind Flayer might have possessed Henry first through that cave exposure, making the family murders less of a conscious choice and more of a hostile takeover. Henry fights against the urges before losing control, which makes him more tragic victim than pure villain. But here's where it gets complicated. The play creates fascinating questions about agency and reliability. Was Henry always evil like he claims in Season 4? Or did the Upside Down corrupt an innocent kid? Is Henry's memory of events accurate? Or has trauma and decades as Vecna warped his recollection? The contradiction might be intentional, showing how unreliable trauma-shaped memories can be. You can't trust a villain's origin story when he's been a monster for longer than he was human. Either way, the play connects directly to the show's canon and fills in gaps about how Brenner found Henry after the coma and why Hawkins specifically became Ground Zero. The town sits on top of a dimensional weak point that Henry's cave exposure made him sensitive to, which is why gates open so easily there. It's all connected through decades of psychic contamination, and the play suggests Hawkins was doomed from the moment Henry Creel moved there in 1959. Game appearances. Vecna shows up across multiple games with varying levels of importance, and some of them add interesting details to his character. Stranger Things VR lets players experience his powers firsthand, using remote viewing to track targets and manipulate mindscapes. You play as Orderly Henry before the transformation, which is deeply unsettling because you're doing evil from his perspective. The game ties directly into Season 4 events, showing his interactions with Eleven from his point of view and making you understand his twisted logic about humanity being a plague. Dead by Daylight added Dungeons & Dragons' version of Vecna as a playable killer in their asymmetrical horror game, and the mechanics are genuinely clever. He hunts survivors using curse mechanics that slow them down and reveal their locations, mimicking his show abilities. Players debate whether he's overpowered, because his perks like Unforeseen give massive speed bursts when survivors complete objectives. It's not canon to Stranger Things, but it captures the feeling of being hunted by something that knows your psychological weaknesses and uses them against you. The mobile game Puzzle Tales treats him as a high difficulty enemy with Mind Blast attacks that stun your whole team, which is annoying but accurate to his powers. The Stranger Things 3 game hints at his influence through Mind Flayer encounters, but he's not directly present since it was made before Season 4 existed, and the Duffers were keeping his existence secret. Every game interpretation focuses on his psychic predator nature though, making players feel vulnerable and targeted even when he's not physically present. That's the key to his design. Vecna doesn't need to be in the room to terrify you, because he's already in your head, studying your fears, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Final connection. Every major Stranger Things event connects to Vecna's long game, and mapping it out reveals just how patient and calculating he really is. Will's disappearance in Season 1 wasn't random bad luck. It initiated the investigation that would eventually expose Hawkins Lab's secrets, destabilize Brenner's operation, and create the emotional trauma Vecna could exploit years later. 11 escaping the lab and opening the first gate gave Vecna his invasion route after years of being trapped in Dimension X. He'd been waiting for that gate since 1979, and the moment it opened, he sent the Demogorgon through to start testing Hawkins' defenses. Bob Newby's death in Season 2 happened because Vecna sent Demodogs to overrun the lab, targeting infrastructure and people who could potentially stop his plans. Bob was brilliant, kind, and brave. He would have been an asset in fighting the Upside Down, so Vecna made sure he died. Billy's sacrifice in Season 3 temporarily stopped the Mind Flayer, but left survivors traumatized enough to become Season 4's curse victims. Max's guilt over Billy's death made her vulnerable. Nancy's survivor guilt from Barb's death made her vulnerable. Every loss created a psychological wound Vecna could weaponize later. Hopper's supposed death and resurrection in Russia happened because Vecna's Season 3 invasion failed when the gate closed. The party was scattered, Hawkins lost its protector, and everyone was too broken to mount an effective defense. Joyce moved her family to California, splitting up the group that had stopped 3 invasions. 11 lost her powers from overuse, removing the only person who could actually fight Vecna. By Season 4, Hawkins is defenseless, which is exactly what Vecna needed to complete his ritual. The 4-season buildup makes his reveal hit so much harder than if he just appeared out of nowhere. New viewers watching for the first time see random monster attacks and think each season is its own contained threat. Rewatching after Season 4 reveals the chess game Vecna was playing all along, sacrificing pawns like the Demogorgon and using pieces like the Mind Flayer to position himself for checkmate. Every character's trauma, every loss, every near-death experience was Vecna cultivating the emotional wounds he'd eventually weaponize. The scope of his manipulation elevates him beyond typical horror villains into genuine mastermind territory. He's not reacting to the hero's actions. They're reacting to his plans that started decades ago. Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers just kill people. Vecna destroys communities psychologically before physically tearing them apart. He's playing a game that spans generations, and he's winning because nobody even knew they were playing until Season 4. If you enjoyed this video and want to see every crazy stranger, things theory that might actually be true, click the video on the screen.